Hi, thank you so much for chatting with me. I really appreciate it.
Totally. Yeah. Thanks for your time today as well. I'm excited.
I am too. Honestly, I thought the film was phenomenal. I really did. It's riveting and terrifying. Um,
Yes. It can be both.
what was it that brought you into the film? What was it that excited you to be a part of it?
Yeah. Well, so there was a fire in 2017 that was just east of Portland, Oregon, where I live, in this beautiful, special, old growth, recreation area with a beautiful creek running through it. And um, there was an east wind blowing ashes into Portland. It was the first time that had happened in like generations. Um, And I think for Portlanders, we, unlike California, even unlike Colorado and the Southwest, we just hadn't had that. And I think it was kind of this wake up call for us in this area to say, okay, if this can be this close to us, a fire can be this close to us in the wet Pacific Northwest, this really can happen anywhere in this warming world that we live in. And also it seemed like there was I produced this student film 15 years earlier about fire in Oregon, and it really just seemed like there was this gap between the public discourse on one hand and what I remembered about sort of the best available science, and just worried that in that gap, you know we could make the wrong decisions at such an important moment for how we deal with fire, right? And if we deal with fire in a way that makes the climate warmer or has unintended consequences that could make us less safe. And so what started this like 5 year basically research investigative documentary about it. And in the end, we came out, I think, with an actual answer. And I think this is how people are going to be talking about fire in 5 years. Hopefully, in next year after they watch the film.
Well, honestly, that's the thing that I thought was so fascinating about this is it completely changes the way the narrative of fire that I've ever seen in any film, fictional or otherwise. It's truly surprising in so many ways. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit about that. Can you talk a little bit about our changing relationship with fire? What surprised you about that most?
Mm. Well, I was really, a lot of this was new to me too. Like
Hmm.
I really, I remember very early on, a researcher told me, kind of offhand, like, you know, anything that we do to change fire behavior more than like 100 feet from a home has very little effect on whether or not the home burns down. And I was just like, yeah, that guy's wrong for sure. And I spent 5 years proving myself wrong and him right. And that's kind of the journey of the film, right? And it started very early on for me in the production process. And so I also think so you have this research on one hand that's being done. Scientists are doing great experiments, that are allowing the insurance industry to really understand what we need to do to prevent homes from and structures and buildings from burning down. And on the other hand, we have these fire disasters that just keep happening and are kind of unimaginable, right? Like 6 years ago, if you had said to me there's going to be a fire that's going to burn 19,000 structures and kill 86 people in Paradise, California, I'd be like, no, that's crazy. That's like an order of magnitude bigger. But they just keep happening, right? So I think that that's forcing our hand. Like we we have to change. A 10,000% increase in destruction of homes. That's just not acceptable. We're spending a few hundred million every year on vegetation management outside the cities, outside communities, in the backcountry often, and it's a pretty failing grade, to increase that much in destruction. So we wanted to say, just okay. So what do we do? So what's next then?
Well, I mean, I will say, like you're talking about the devastation just blowing up exponentially, and my goodness, like the footage you've got in this is is harrowing. Like the where you hear the scenes and are like, oh well, I looked outside and I'm sitting there, wow, this is what a terrible night this is to see, and they're like, oh, it's 12:30 in the afternoon, and it looks like 2 o'clock in the morning or midnight, and to see this devastation and not even like just after footage, cell phone camera footage of it actually taking place, it's no wonder that we're so scared of fire in so many
Oh yeah.
ways because that's what we see. Like not to put a poor comparison. I admit it's a poor comparison, but sharks. People talk, oh, sharks are terrifying, but they don't really understand these animals. Same here as with fire. Uh,
Right. Yeah, no, it's a good analogy, right? Because sharks, yeah, a shark attack is real bad, but sharks in general, pretty good. We need them. We need sharks in the ocean, right? They're an important part of the ecosystem. I mean, and so is fire, right?
yeah,
Like, it's not that fire is all good or all bad. And I think that's this contradiction and this nuance we tried to get at in the film, you know. And there is a thread of acknowledging that fire is good and important, and like a hurricane, we can't stop it, you
yeah,
know. What we have power over is the way we build and the way that we live in these fire prone landscapes, right? And so that's, I think, the way that we sort of have to reimagine this is to reprogram really and relearn this story and this narrative that we've held for 100 plus years, that the problem is in the forest,
mm,
right? We call them forest fires, but the majority of homes that burn down in California and across the United States are not in forests.
mm,
They're in grasslands or shrublands, chaparral, right? And so if we define the problem as something that's in the forest, we're not going to get where we need to go, right? So it is this reimagining of the problem and a reimagining of the solution. And with so many climate oriented films, disaster oriented films, we're pointing out a big problem, and it's like, oh, this problem needs to change, which is great. We need those films,
mhm.
but what we found in this one is that there really is a path forward to a safer, west, really kind of the entire country where we can live and thrive with wildfire.
I wondered about that too because that's one of the things I really appreciate the film is so many times when we hear films about disasters, and rightfully so, we hear it's climate change. That's it. And this film doesn't allow it to sit there. It allows it to be more complex, even to the point of colonialism, and it ties our misuse of fire to colonialist mentality. I was wondering if you could talk a little bit more about that because I'll be honest, that was downright shocking to me in so many ways.
Mm. Yeah, well, I think that, my ancestors came to this place, the East Coast, specifically, but with this sort of like, idea that we will sort of bend nature to our will, right? And that is, we're running up against the limits of that, right? That's kind of what we came and we said we will make this land what we want it to be. And it did kind of work pretty well in the middle of the last century, right? So like the 1950s, 40s, 50s, 60s, into the 70s. It was a prolonged, cool, wet period. We went from the Dust Bowl, hot, dry, lots of fire, to this nice, cool, wet period. And during that period, we expanded into all of these places, that we believed we could modify, we could change, and we could get rid of fire, even though it's such an integral part of all of these ecosystems, right? And we never think that about hurricanes. We don't think that about tornadoes, right? There's no tornado fighters or hurricane fighters. And thankfully, we have firefighters who do an amazing job at keeping us safe. And we need them. However, there just are limits to what they
Mm.
can do, right? And so yeah, part of it is that sort of colonial mindset of like change the wild to be what we want it to be. And I think that's why it was so important to me to talk to people who've lived here a lot longer than me or my ancestors. The Yurok tribe, we went and I got to burn with them. I got to be in the forest, burning forest, to take care of the small fuels. And I learned so much from them and about this relationship that's, just accepts that fire is, and we can change what we do, but we can't change that fire exists in these places, right?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Well, I mean, what do you think it means to appreciate fire? It seems like such a strange question in so many ways. It's just such a foreign idea because, of course, we have fire. We need fire. We need fire to cook and all this stuff. But this film really taps into this idea that we don't appreciate what fire offers, and I'm wondering, from your perspective, what that means.
That's a really excellent question. And I think about it a lot, a whole lot, because I get really excited about this part of it, honestly. To me, fire is this force that brings about cycles in the ecology around us, right? And everything in nature, everything in the world moves in cycles, right? And most of the time those cycles change slowly,
Hmm.
but a fire changes overnight. And for us as humans, that is terrifying. It really is. We don't like to see that quick of a change because it's hard to wrap our minds around. It's hard to go to a place that you used to love to recreate one day and it's big green trees, and you go the next week and it's burned, right? And it's black trees. But that is such an amazing lesson. I think that we as humans should learn in our daily lives, right? That like the change is the thing that's so beautiful,
Hmm.
because when we go there, it's a different host of animals, birds that you don't get to see any other time, bears using the ecosystem in a different way, right? And it's diversity. When that habitat changes, all these new species come in, all
Yeah.
these new opportunities to find food come in. And what a great analogy with, the way that we need to sort of deal with other humans, right? Is like diversity makes us stronger. Diversity is so beautiful. And when you go out into the forest and you get to see it in real time, it's this cycle, it's this immediate change that normally you'd have to wait a lifetime to see in nature. And you get to see it in just a couple of days.
Hmm.
I think it's really, really exciting and cool. And it's something, it's really, honestly, it's a lesson that I bring with me. I try to bring with me into every day, right? Things aren't going to be the same as they were yesterday. They're not going to be the same as they were last week. But there is a process at work, and it is beautiful.
I absolutely love that. It is so true. It is so true, and something worth celebrating within this film in the midst of the terrifying aspects of fire, which we see the beauty of it as well that comes forth from it. I think is incredible. Um,
And at the same time, of course, boy, we got to protect our homes and communities from it. Because if they change that quickly, we're out of luck.
yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Honestly, the film is amazing. It's an incredible film, very challenging, and I love that it sort of reframes the whole narrative. Thank you so much. I really appreciate the chance to talk with you. This has been great.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking all your very insightful questions. And I want to make sure everyone knows that it's streaming on June 13th on Apple and Amazon, so you can check it out. The pre-order is already up. So, I hope that people can see this. I hope that we can, make everybody's individual homes safer. And the more people that do that, the safer our neighborhoods and communities will be. So, thanks for getting the word out there for us.
Awesome. Thanks so much. All right, phenomenal. Have a great day, and I certainly I wish you the best and for the film as well.
Thank you. I appreciate it.